Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is going safe around the world, and as well, wishing you a lot of patience and a lot of positive vibes, given everything that is happening. I think we need to keep a bit of sense of humor and a bit of focus as well. So we are coming to another wonderful series of interviews on video with leaders worldwide, thought leaders from different areas of expertise, from science to technology to social impact to digital transformation. And this is a series of citiesabc.com, our new platform for social impact related with cities, uniting and constructing positive solutions for the cities worldwide that are the epicenter of humanity and where we have a lot of opportunities. And the Cities ABC came precisely on that angle. Today we have with us Antonio Santos, someone I deeply respect and we've been collaborating for some years. So Antonio is a global leader in digital transformation and as well in social media and social impact. He's been creating multiple things. You can see his bio in openbusinesscouncil.org and a lot of the things in the internet, as he is quite visible in a lot of parts of the internet. So we're going to be interviewing Antonio Santos in a lot of different areas of his very rich profile and experience in life, but as well looking at the work he's been doing in building solutions and as well thought leadership around the problems we're facing worldwide. And I think we are particularly important. And I think at this moment where we have so much issues related with the emergence about what is happening with the world, where we have a massive crisis that is touching all areas of society. And of course, how can we leverage this and create a good solution in the multiple areas? So, Antonio, welcome on board. You are collaborating with us in different areas as well. It's an honor to have you here. I think just before I start with the interviews, just some of the things you've been doing. So we have, you've been working with a major corporation worldwide, Atos, one of the leading companies in technology in the world, as well collaborating with Siemens, and as well in the past you've been working with the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce in Ireland, and as well still. And as well, you are behind the AXA program for podcast and program to highlight disability, and you consider yourself an innovation broker. So it's some of the things in my introduction. So I would like to start probably contextualizing your career, your profile, how did you come to this moment, and a bit of your background education.
Well, I'm a sociologist by training. Uh, Something that a move that I did while I was in the army, where in the Portuguese army, where I was for about 7 years. But before that, I have a career that started in Portugal with pirate radios and journalism, something that I decided to move away from at the age of 21 when I went into the when I decided to went into the Portuguese army and stay there. And while I was there, I ended up studying sociology. And something that I was not expecting at the time is how important it is social sciences today when we talk about technology. And this has become a real asset in my career today. At Atos, in the project that I work with Siemens, the fact that I have this type of background is quite useful in everything that I do.
So, being someone that came from Portugal and built a career worldwide, you have actually quite an interesting overview, and especially right now that everyone is working remotely. And let's start with that, because you've been working remotely for the last probably decade. Can you tell us a bit about your background from Portugal to Ireland, and as well more and more all over the world? And now you've been coordinating both your um, profile professional, but as well your profile as an influencer and as a social impact driver.
I moved to, I was working in the telecom business in Portugal. And then I was invited to go to work in Ireland for a company also in the telecom space at the time, Siemens Mobile. That what drove my move to Ireland around 2006. And then the company went to different process of change. And then in 2011, the department where I was working has became part of Atos. And then we had a program at the time called Zero Email Program that was focused on removing email from the workplace, uh, building technologies for collaboration at work. And apart from that, there was the ability, how can we use collaboration and improve the way how we work from home. So in a very slow process at the beginning, people start to get used how to work remotely at their own pace. We had the program of adjustments in that matter. And that's how I end up evangelizing in terms of collaboration, in terms of remote work. So and then I've been working more or less remotely since those days. Even things became fully remote around 2014, 2015 for me, where I became fully remote. And today, this is part of the way how we work. Most of our colleagues around the world, they work remotely. Others don't because of deals and relationships that we have with customers, where remote is not really possible, but remote is pretty much on the DNA of Atos.
Wonderful, and it's quite impressive because it's already around 10 years that you more than 10 years that you've been working remotely. When we are right now, we have a kind of a huge part of the world population working remotely, and of course with a lot of consequences. So before we go to a couple of other questions, just coming back to your background. So Atos is one of the leading technology companies in the world, the same with Siemens. Can you tell us a bit of the work you've been doing with these companies, mostly from a shift of technology, and especially as in the last 20 years, more or less, you saw the progress of technology, especially being in two of the major companies worldwide on technology?
So, as you know, we develop technology solutions, and especially with a strong focus on digital transformation, helping organizations at the level of workplace, uh, big data and analytics, helping organizations to move into a more collaborative environments like we do. So we use our own transformation as an example to help customers in the same way. I've been doing consultancy in terms of communications, um, helping organizations to communicate in a different way, trying to activate employees to be more active on the channels, to be the voice of the organization. And then that relates with some of the work that I've been doing with Siemens, covering different events like the Web Summit or CES or GTEx in Dubai, where doing interviews with some of their leaders, trying to show in a more natural way what people do, and not from the journalistic, but from a technology point of view, try to identify how organizations operate with insights from some of the experts that they have, bringing their own voices forward instead of just being a press release over on the website. So we are really interested in empowering employees to become the voice of the organization, to be able to communicate and share insights on the social channels. At the same time, sharing their own who they are, who they mixing a little bit of of their work, but personal life, because in the end, that's what we are. Professionals, parents, educators, and today we found that it's particularly important to bring these two things together, where we're able to show our own identities at the same time, our passion for technology and our interest to make the world a little bit better with technology when that is possible.
So one question that I would like to ask you, and it's there's a lot of ways of looking at it, but being someone that is in the epicenter of a lot of things between technology, society, and big corporations, and as well social impact and CSR, how do you define or how do you view digital transformation? Because I think this is something that is kind of fundamental, especially nowadays, but there's a lot of myths around this.
I think sometimes we see different narratives around this transformation. I was talking with the CEO from the German company about 2 years ago about the different angles of this transformation across geographies, because sometimes if we are in China, when you talk about digital transformation, we might some issues might come arise. If I'm in India, the narrative is different. In the United States, there are different narratives according to geographies that sometimes also relate with political initiatives, with the capacity of the country. But I think digital transformation really starts at the core the way how you empower employees to use technology, not more technology, but how the technology that your organization is using, how are your employees taking advantage of that same technology? I don't, the sophistication of that technology is not particularly important. What is important is, are your employees actually using the technology that you have the capability to provide them? Yes or no? And sometimes I think that's where it starts, because sometimes we might end up realizing that we are buying more technology on the top of technology, but in fact, employees are not really taking advantage of that. So I think uh, digital transformation starts in how you are able to empower your employees to take advantage of all the tech that you already have. And that's the step. And then from the moment that they are using technology, how you are able to improve and bring more technology, always following this path where employees always take advantage from whatever technology the organization is providing or making available internally. At the core of that, I think the ability that you have to facilitate collaboration within employees in your organization is particularly important. So organizations that are digital transforming, they also need to put a lot of effort finding ways how employees share ideas, share information in their own internal communities. So I believe that without a strong focus on internal collaboration, you can't claim that you are digitally transforming.
Yeah, very important. So this takes us to the other questions that I have here and some of the things. So from your experience as well, working between different countries and with different cultures, different mentalities, and as well in a big corporation that is, I think Atos is the biggest technology company, one of the biggest in the world, I think in terms of growth, in terms of at least the biggest in Europe, being a French company. So how do you see this cultural shift and as well the different velocities that you have from country to country, from being Portuguese and then working a lot in Ireland, but as well right now more and more in Germany and the rest of the world? How do you see this difference of cultural, nationalist, and then technology? Because this is a big problem, especially for what is happening around the world right now.
No, it's clear that there are countries that are moving faster. And then you have industries that are moving faster, and sometimes you also have some large cities that are moving faster in their own countries. We know, you know as much as I do, that for example in Portugal, Lisbon and Porto, they move a lot faster than other regions of the country. We know that in London, in UK, London moves a lot faster than other regions in UK. In Germany, Munich moves faster than other parts of Germany. So we see some even we see this kind of nuances where within countries, metropolitan areas uh, with large populations, they tend to move faster. The same in the United States, in San Francisco, New York, Boston, Toronto in Canada. And we are also talking about a major number of cities who are made of immigrants and expats. And this also helps these cities to move faster in terms of technology. If we want to compare countries, we know that uh, the UK or the United States always have been at the front run of implementing technologies, moving faster in the way how business in utilities, in public transport are changing. But in the last couple of years, we have seen countries like Germany, France, and the Nordics catching up, and in some cases surpassing the United States, where the culture of startup, the culture of startup sometimes uh, uh, works very well in terms of communication. But then when you dive deep into the technology, you might end up realizing that Europe is quite a leader in the sector. If one of an example that Udinese know pretty well is in terms of payments, where we have been using cards and mobile payments in Europe for quite some time, and in a more sophisticated way than they have been used in the United States. And we know that in the last couple of years, China has done a huge leap in that sector, uh, moving a few steps ahead with QR codes and making mobile payments available to everyone within the country, almost in some areas of China, almost creating a kind of a cashless society. I think if we want to be serious about this, we might end up realizing that digital transformation is happening differently all over the world. No one is actually leading it because people might be leading in different sectors in a particular space. No, Europe is leading in GDPR and data protection, being very serious how data is being shared. United States are usually creating to the startup culture being very agile and creating companies that can scale really fast. But sometimes you need to find a midterm and a balance. So I see that more and more the ability of learning from each other has actually created a very interesting impact and discussions. But I think we in Europe, we need to find ways to communicate our narrative better. Unfortunately, we don't have that many resources in terms of communication like you have in the United States, where they have plenty of organizations covering news that relate with technology in a great way. And sometimes that might give the impression that they are leading, while in Europe we don't do that in the same way. And then sometimes that might create the impression that we are not a digital leader when in fact we are.
That's a very important thing right now because I think Europe is kind of in a very tricky situation as an entity, and as well, if you take the political part, there's a really lot of multiple perceptions because of Brexit and because of the divisions in Europe. But the thing is, like you said, that's effectively it's probably the most digital innovative continent in the world. But definitely the perception internationally is that we're not leading, and as well there's a lot of issues. For example, based in London, you're between Lisbon or Portugal and in Ireland, and as well in Germany. And is that actually the challenge on that? So I think now, and coming back a bit more to the point and that we are is, how do you see this leadership of Europe or lack of leadership? Because Latus is a French company, Siemens is a German, which are the two drivers of Europe. And as well, Ireland is one of the most advanced of the most of the tech companies are based in Ireland. What you would highlight from an European angle, if you look at US and Asia and actually Africa and Latin America, what would be the areas that you highlight in terms of the innovation coming out of Europe, being as well, for instance, you work a lot in smart cities and as well 5G, digital transformation, things like that, or big data. How we would see that part Europe can somehow highlight the things we've been doing on that level.
Well, not long time ago, the European Commission released a project that was signed by different countries for high performance computing, where large, powerful computers are available to universities for research. So and that's something that you see happening in Europe. There are other projects that relate with smart cities like Fireware that is trying to create a kind of a footprint and the basis for smart cities in Europe. Because some of the efforts that have been seen from Europe is trying to find ways where all countries are able to use technology in a similar way, trying not to leave people behind. Where we have seen initiatives that relate with some of the work that I really care about, that is trying to find ways where software that is being built, applications, are accessible for individuals with disabilities. So I see that we are trying to, there's plenty of initiatives coming from the European Commission that try to go along and make sure that they are available almost on every country of the EU, providing funds, providing a good level of initiatives, and with a strong focus on individuals, and trying to find ways where everyone can somehow be at the same level of the adoption of technology. We have we have the initiative of the 2020 program from the EU, and I'm sure we have a new one, a new coming soon. But what I see here, there's in Europe, that there's a more concern for the citizens in many different aspects of their life that I see any other place in the world. You know, how can we how can we empower technology, use the best technology, but at the same time responding and make sure that the privacy of citizens is being considered. And I think that that is paramount, that we consider all the ethical effects of technology, but at the same time, it's important to recognize that we in Europe need to communicate better in terms of that message.
Yeah, the message is really important. I think actually it's, and this comes to your head as an influencer, and as well as being a sociologist by education, and as well as an influencer, one of the leading influencers in digital transformation, technology in a lot of areas. We are in a lot of lists as one of the most influential in the world.
Let
So
me let me interrupt you there,
yeah,
Denis, just to give it
yeah,
of the over the last couple of days, with all of us being forced to to work from home as a way to not only to um, make sure that we are in a safe place, but at the same time as a way to protect others. I've seen a good number of executives from many companies starting to use social networks in a more active way, particularly from here in Europe, and that has a very positive effect, because sometimes one of the reasons why we're a bit behind is because we don't have enough executives and people using the social channels. So you know as much as I do that if we go to the influencer lists, if we use this, we realize that even today that list is still dominated from people from the United States. The number of Europeans there is quite small. And there's not that many. You know, if we look at from a women's angle, it's even less. You know, most of the women that we see leading in the technology sector, they usually based in the United States. So I see what is happening now as very interesting in terms of adoption of new ways of of communication from some senior leaders in Europe, and I hope this will stay, and this will help us at least to improve a little bit from what we have been doing in the past.
completely, and it's an important thing to say, Les. I think it's a critical one. So coming back right now to the question about you as an influencer and someone that comes with a sociology background. So how do you see your work as an influencer? Because I think, as you mentioned, you are in the epicenter or in the crossroad between being kind of a new journalist, because there's a lack of journalism and a lack of specialized media on technology, which is very difficult. Actually, brands can people like you and me, precisely because they're struggling to have people that understand the layers of technology, and as well because the conventional media is much more focused on the conventional news than actually looking at what is happening in terms of technology, which creates a kind of a schizophrenic environment that you start having cases like Trump universe and ecosystem of manipulation of media and fake news, and then we have as well all the conventional media that is more focused on the negative stuff that happens in the world than actually a lot of the positive. So how do you see your work as a social influencer, and as well you are as well having a component of CSR and social impact in your work, but how do you see that work? Because it's becoming more and more important, and even within your role within Atos and Siemens, but as well a work that makes a bridge between thought leadership, news, research, and as well a lot of innovation, because a lot of the discussions like the one we have here are becoming the drive for a lot of other thought leaders to define. And as well, like you said, for instance, Europe is lacking this leadership, digital, and we need this around the world. So how do you see that work of yours? And as well, I know that you've been putting a lot of efforts on that and with a lot of success. How do you see that from the beginning until now, and how you see that probably going forward, especially right now with all the challenges we got in the world?
I think it's important to highlight that what I'm doing today was born from some of my frustrations in the past. I was around when Twitter started to grow and become more important in terms of communications, and even the growth of LinkedIn. I was reading information online. I was realizing, well, there's so much highlight in activities that are happening in the United States, but in fact, we do a lot better in those technologies in Europe, but nobody was talking about them. So, and I was really frustrated with that. Sometimes, oh, there's a new startup that is going to make a big revolution in payments. And I was reading that, well, I'm using that type of card since I'm 16-year-old, already using technology for that long. And now this American news agency or this tech magazine is claiming this as something new. No, and nobody, and then I realized, well, with social media now I have the chance to go to the writer of this blog post and have a discussion with him and tell, well, just stop a minute there. No, what you're just reporting is not really new. And I was able to point him to the technology that we're already using. So I started to realize, that I need, somehow I was looking at this as a kind of a responsibility of an employee of an organization to go there and tell them, well, uh, we do this and we do this far better. And that's how I end up starting. And then I start to realize that if today, if working for an organization, this becomes part of your own responsibility as an employee to communicate what your organization is doing on the social channels. Everyone has some level of responsibility for communication, not just marketing and communication. You need to somehow take some ownership for this yourself, considering that sometimes in some areas what we see in most of the media is just the print or the writing on the top of a press release. I was I think it was 2 years ago, I was in a big event from the EU related with digital, and one of the leads of the European Commission was there available for questions. And you were just a few meters from us, asking the journalists, if you have any questions, I'm here, please. And nobody was asking questions. They were just waiting for a press release that they could use and then to publish. And then I ended up talking with some of the journalists while we were having a cup of coffee, and we realized that the fact that sometimes people don't have a background in technology, or that was not some technology is not present in their lives, make the life of journalists quite difficult, because if they are in a press conference about digital transformation, uh, they don't sometimes know what to ask, because the companies that they work for as journalists are still using emails. They are still using a very old laptop to work and to write the news. we're talking about organizations that have not transformed themselves. So they are in a very difficult position to understand technology when they have all that information in front of them.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the core problems with the rest of digital transformation in the world, and as well the I think this explains as well why we had the Brexit and a lot of the issues that are happening in the US that is dividing the country, because we have like the conventional media and then the non-conventional media. So that is a big tough, but for the sake of the interview, so I want to go more precise in a couple of things related to your fantastic profile. So um, probably just one question on this because I really want to. So, how do you see this division? And this comes to your work as a social impact leader with Akshat,
Yeah.
and a lot of things with the Plus or 10 org and the talent culture. So, how do you see this work of yours that is a bit shifting from the corporate part that is much more for social impact and is actually having a huge impact, especially with the Axe Chat, which is becoming a big group, and we had already a partnership with Barclays and other things. Can you tell us about that work? Because that shifts precisely probably your work as trying to bring your influence to help in cases like this disability and things like that.
So myself, Neil Milik, and Deborah, we started that conversation because we were somehow looking at how that type of conversation were taking place online, and realized that there was the communities were apart, and the purpose of Access Chat is to bring together different experts on the area of disability, accessibility, and inclusion, all to one place where they can share ideas, they can have discussions every Tuesdays on Twitter, and they can share their own views. So Akshasat is a place that brings everyone together to one place, and it becomes a place where everyone can learn from each other. So that was our main goal with Access Chat, is to bring people from, that work in healthcare, people that work in technology, people that work in education, but somehow they all work in accessibility, or they all work in inclusion. And that makes the conversation more valuable. So when we are putting together the questions that we ask every week, one of the things that is on the basis of that is that we need to find a way where everyone, even non-experts, are able to answer the questions. We don't want people to come to the Twitter chat or join the Twitter chat and they see the questions and they realize, well, I'm not sophisticated, I don't have enough knowledge to answer to that question. We do it on purpose to make sure that nobody feels like that. Sometimes it's not always possible. We have to recognize that. But what we want to to do with Access is a kind of a forum of discussions where everyone can join. And then from when you go and check the footprint of Access Chat over the last couple of years, if you go to the hashtag, you have somehow a kind of a knowledge base on Twitter on all things accessibility and digital inclusion from leading experts from all over the world.
So you've been interviewing some high-profile people in the chat. Could you just, for our audience, and I think it's a very powerful tool as well, and this as well having a huge follow base. Can you just give us a bit of some of the highlights that you've been doing with the chat?
Well, we have some of the leaders of the disability movement in the United States. We have actors from people working in governments in different parts of the world, working on accessibility, on disability, and inclusion. Sometimes we realize that, well, there's a very interesting project here. This person is not that very well known, but they are doing some very interesting work. And what we do is we reach out the person, and we try to bring them to the conversation, and let everyone know who this person is about. We met someone in Colombia who were basically hacking existing pieces of uh, hardware and software, and they were using that technology to make cheap devices for people with disabilities for them to use the internet. Because he usually only communicates in Spanish, nobody was actually aware of what this person was doing. So what we try is to bring a mix of diverse people to the Twitter chat to find to let people know what is happening in different parts of the world around inclusion. And one of the things that I might say kind of a highlight, it was the work that we do with Valuable 500 that is being led by Caroline Casey. And she was at the World Economic Forum in the last 2 years trying to create a kind of a Fortune 500 uh, for for companies that supporting individuals with disabilities and are able to bring disability to conversations at the level. That's what Valuable 500 is all about. Create a board, make boardrooms and senior executives having a conversation about disability and trying to find ways where those companies become more inclusive, not only for their workforces, but also to untap the consumer market uh, in terms of availability of products for the needs of individuals with disabilities. We recently had uh, a guest about last week that is focused on creating clothes for people with disabilities, and she had made a partnership with Tommy Hilfiger to make fashion uh, available for people with disabilities, and she's currently creating an agency of models of people with disabilities, and she can act as a broker between them and the brands that want to work with people with disabilities. So this is the type of people that we trying to highlight the work and have broader conversations.
Fantastic. And we are getting close to more than half an hour, so I'll try to right now align some of the last questions. So one of the questions I want to ask you is precisely your work with Siemens in terms of smart cities and digital transformation for cities, which is a key element that we have in the world. How do you see this work, especially related with smart cities and what we are seeing right now with the world? What would be your highlights and some of your visions on that level?
Well, I see that Siemens is trying to create a blueprint for smart cities with the Expo 2020 in Dubai. So the project, they are one of the main technology partners for that exhibition, where they are providing all the technology backbone that is supporting the expo, helping the expo to become more sustainable, helping the expo to optimize the data to improve mobility in transportation. So what I see in this work in Dubai, I have seen also in some of other work that they have done in other cities in the United States, where cities somehow are able to take ownership um, of their own technology, and and they are somehow able to become agnostic in relation to others that might try to impose some of technology. So I've been some seen some very interesting cases in the United States where a city is able to implement IoT solutions, uh, the backbone of IoT solutions, and they are able to monitor all the traffic. They're able to improve the traffic within the city, and cars from all brands are able to connect in the same way. So it could be Ford, it could be Tesla, it could be any other car. They connect to the city infrastructure in the exact same way. So, and if you have a certain type of car, you are able, with some small changes, you are able to buy technology that you are able to add to your car, and take advantage of the city infrastructure and do things like when you are driving and for some reason you do a wrong turn, the car will tell you, don't turn, that's a dangerous move, and you get a notification and you can go back to your path. At the same time, you are getting this information, the city is not using this type of information to find you or to something that they could do, but they are using more this technology to make sure that uh, as that you that they can prevent an accident, or they can improve the quality of traffic within the city. And at the same time, they are trying to find ways where people don't uh, trust on the technology, and they don't feel that the cities are there to track individuals, and they are respecting their liberties of movement, but at the same time they let people to take advantages of the technology in order to keep themselves safe. So I see this kind of a balance, using technology to allow people to move in the city in the safe way, at the same time not to interfere on their liberties, and not to interfere or not to get too much data from a specific individual that make that person somehow suspicious about what the city is doing. And in fact, that person might realize, I don't want to be tracked, I don't want to use technology. So cities are trying to find a way where they keep the balance of privacy at the same time that are trying to find ways where citizens can confidently use technology in a way to be safe, and to make cities more allow cities to be more sustainable in terms of how they are managing the traffic within the urban space.
Fantastic, and that brings us to the, well, I think the topic that is, of course, the biggest topic in the world nowadays, and as well all the changes. So, coronavirus is changing the world as we see it, and of course, it's right now the health consequences that we are all facing, and as well right now, of course, the economical and financial consequences that are coming out of that, and they seem to be massive. There's a lot of Nurini is talking that this is worse than all the major century um, kind of crisis that we had, a depression. And as well, yeah, even me, I've been working on the theory that this is almost a bit like what happened between the the death of the Roman Empire and the passing to the kind of the Middle Ages, where we start emerging with new cities and new leadership systems around the world. How do you see this, being you, someone that has been working between cities, between different organizations, and as well working with all these technologies? How do you see what is happening around us? Because definitely there's a huge, right now, backlash in everything, in major objects of society. There's a panic, there's a lot of things, but of course this is as well an opportunity. And of course in cities, abc.com, we've been actually working precisely to create out of this an opportunity, and as well to create a positive narrative. So I would like to have your vision on this.
No, I would like to focus on some of the positive aspects. Some organizations are using this to empower employees to finally do some small transformations. I can say, in Portugal, working from home was always something almost impossible to do at scale. And now almost all organization is asking employees to work from home, and I hope this will last after. I've seen researchers from different parts of Europe coming together to solve common problems. I've seen individuals trying to do the same, using 3D printers to print technology that can be used in hospitals. I've seen a lot of people coming together to find solutions for the problem, using technologies like the one that we're using here now, or just by using email. So uh, I've seen the fact that people are able to find common solutions without having to be all in the same place. I've seen this as a kind of something really, really positive. And following this, I see that we are observing very interesting developments, particularly in manufacturing and supply chains, where people are trying to find alternatives and solutions. And even there are some very interesting cases where companies that were manufacturing a certain type of products, suddenly they are able to change and adjust their supply chain to suddenly manufacture a different product. There are some cases in the fashion industry, in the perfume industry, where they are creating sanitizers for hospitals. There are kinds of retrofitting technology with Decathlon, where they're using their masks in an interesting way in order to be able to be adapted and to be used in hospitals. I think this is somehow enhancing human creativity to fight some of the obstacles. But at the same time, countries that rely a lot in tourism, they are in a very difficult situation. People working in hospitality, they are losing their jobs. There's not really much for them to do because nobody, is using the services. Nobody is traveling. So I think this is a time for us to stop and think. Myself, who I've been someone that works from home for quite some time. But I usually, when I was working remotely, I was basically at home by myself. So now I have other people working from home like me, like my daughter that is studying, my wife. So the three of us, we are all working remotely. So in the past, I was just Antonio, the employee working from home. But now, if I'm doing a short break, I'm the father doing a short break at home for a coffee, and I have my daughter at home. So wants some level of attention. So our roles are changing, and we are learning to live with them. So we can all learn from the fact that nature is asking us, all of us, to stop for a moment and think about it.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's a good way to wrap up this conversation. I don't know if you have something more to add, but it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time and as well insights and as well a lot of inspirational things. The interview is going to be live very soon, and we're going to be promoting. And as well, I think, can you tell us just the social media where you're present? You are quite an active social media person, so just for people to know. And as well, you're doing a lot of very interesting videos. You collaborating with us. I love your videos and a lot of stuff you're doing. So just if you could just highlight for our audience your social media channels and where you are present.
So I'm more active on Twitter at AKWYZ. That's my whole Twitter handle. But you can, if you go and look for topics like accessibility, digital transformation, or ethos, you might end up able to find me. Uh, no, like you, Denise, we are both Portuguese and expats. We don't have as that many people from our country active on the social channels. So I would, I would challenge everyone that is out there and to be more active. And if you are in Portugal, just to try to be more active on these channels. Try to tell more stories of the country that we are natives from, and then follow the links that Denise is going to share. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them, because I'm very keen in answering questions and engaging on the social channels.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We really appreciate your time, and definitely we'll be collaborating. And I think people will hear from us. So everyone that wants to contact Antonio will be able to do it through Twitter, which is his favorite channel, but he's as well active in Instagram and a lot of other channels. But we'll put the links in the interview. And we appreciate the time and wishing you the better, and keep safe out there. The ones at least that are seeing us at this coronavirus pandemic crisis. but as well keep hopeful and keep practical, because like Antonio said, there's a lot of inspirational things we can use. So wishing everyone a good day. And Antonio, once again, thank you for your time and for your availability.